Ours will. All right, very good. Well, welcome back from lunch, and so glad that you came for our workshop today. So it's a beautiful spring afternoon. So of course, what you want to do after lunch on a beautiful spring afternoon is spend all day indoors talking about depression, suicide, addiction, things like that. But no, I hope that to make this as fun and engaging as possible, while at the same time, I sometimes become kind of playful in my presentations, but I do take these topics really seriously. So I do want to take just a couple of minutes to share with you guys about my organization, New View Healing Solutions. I'm just really proud of the work that we're doing and the growth that we've experienced. You can check us out. We've got a website and a lot of people who are believing with us in this mission of making Oklahoma a more trauma-informed state. So our first and foremost mission is to provide trauma training that's real. And before the pandemic, we were going around to more rural communities and making sure that people didn't have to drive far to get good information that helps people help people. And so we want to make that accessible. And the neat thing is, in each of the communities that we would stop off in, the folks who support us by getting their CEUs make that resource free to everybody else in the community. So really pleased and proud about that. We want to provide real training to clinical professionals. We're providing continuing education, but also we want to not just check the box. We want to do more than just help people meet mandates to maintain their license. That's important. But we also want to help people again, and to have an impact on the way that we look at and think about this work. We want to help improve systems of care. When you support New View and what we do, and getting our CEUs. Of course, you're also supporting us to make free training resources. We're hoping to train every single school system in the state of Oklahoma and all law enforcement in Oklahoma for free. We're not trying to make big bucks on that. We want to truly help make our state better. We want to help inform change. We want to help people, and there's a lot of good people doing things that are good and positive in the state. We believe that we are contributing to that. So we're a growing team. I think people probably get tired of hearing me talk. So we have a couple of other members of the team that join us and present. And also, if you have something that you're passionate about in teaching and helping make Oklahoma more trauma-informed, then we'd like to, have you be a part of our team, either for a one-time engagement, or maybe you want to, become a New View team member. So we have volunteer opportunities and all of those things. And so, but I wanted to tell you kind of a little anecdote you see on the bullet there. Then I'll end the promotional feed on New View Healing Solutions. But I've gotten calls before about people looking for eyeglasses or vision care services. And some of you might be familiar, there is actually a vision or a New View Oklahoma that actually does provide visual care resources. And so we're not those guys, but we really do believe that we want to help people see. We want to help the way people look at trauma and human injuries and how people can actually heal. So, thank you for supporting us. I want to also thank Mark and ODAPCA, our friends and longtime partners over there, and the good things that they're doing. And so honored to take part in your events. I also want to thank Jeff and Robert at the Evolution Foundation. We're partnered with them as well in coalition building and helping to bring trauma-informed resources to schools and different communities throughout Oklahoma. And so really pleased and pumped to be a part of that group. And also just to the New View team, Robert, William and Sam, of course, love you guys. Kat, we have a great team and a team of believers and truth tellers. We're truth tellers. And so we're really pleased. Shout out to our followers all over the state. We have a lot of folks that are following and believing with us in good things. We thank you for that. Brooke out northwest, we're looking forward to coming and seeing you guys and over the summer and talking with your kids and spending some time there. So we do a lot, and we want to keep doing more. And like Mark said, I do the work. And I'll quit tooting my own horn. But I work full time for the Oklahoma Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services, and I work there full time as a therapist. And I've done that for a number of years. And so I'm not just a professional talker. I'm a doer of the work. And so I like to come and report back to you guys what I observe, what I learn, what I'm experiencing as I do that. Because there's lots of people that like to talk but aren't as familiar with actually day to day. And so you guys are the doers of the work too. So I thank you guys for being here. We're going to have live chat today. And so you can type in your questions and let us know if you have comments, be nice and that sort of thing. I'm going to try to come up with some trivia questions as well. And we do have a couple of prizes to give away. Should we show them our t-shirt, Will? Do we have any of those handy?
I think we moved it.
Okay, well, we have New View t-shirts, and it says about putting your love where your mouth is, and it's about fixing our fractured state because, there's a lot of people in the world that will acknowledge the problems that we see and that we see all in our neighborhoods, in our communities, in our schools, and say, yeah, but what are you going to do? It's too big. It's too much. Well, we say something, and you say something. We can do something. And so I've already got my teaching finger out, so I have to be careful. And I have to be careful with my voice too. I know you guys can hear me well, and I don't want to shout at you. I do have a microphone on, so I hurt my voice sometimes because I start out talking really monotone, and then but at the end of it, I'm talking like a Baptist minister or whatever. So at least I can't hear if you chuckle. That reinforces, makes me think I'm funny because, that's not why I do it. But so anyway, thank you guys for being here. I hope that you're maybe watching or listening from under a shade tree or a breezy porch because it is beautiful out there today. And no harm in getting up and moving around a little bit and keeping your circulation going and helping your mind stay engaged. So, but I'll try my best to do that as well. So that's all. Visit us, check us out, give us a call, email us. If you'd like a copy of today's presentation, by all means, give us a shout and we will email that to you. And so we're just going to get going now. By the way, the shirts, we're out of the larger sizes. We have only a couple of extra larges left, but we do have a number of small, medium, and larges of our shirt. And it's not a great shirt. It was designed by a blind guy, so, cut me a little slack. And that is one thing. For those of you who are not familiar with me, I am vision impaired. I've lost most of my vision over the past 10 or 11 years. So I do have one of my assistants here today, good friend and colleague that's helping prompt me on my slides. I will not read to you, and you don't want to be read to. So, but we will be glad to send you the information, and we hope for it to be a good afternoon. So let's get going. The first one is about trauma. Is that right, Will? Okay, so one of the things that I think it's really important for us all of our trainings are trauma informed. Trauma is at the root of so many different things. Trauma is an injury. It's a measurable injury. It does change our brain. It does change our heart. It changes our nervous system in measurable ways. And those are things that are not always easy to see. People don't always wear their injuries on the outside. And so it's a real and measurable injury. Human beings are not really born wired for self-destruction. That comes as a result of injury. Injured people doing injured things that cause more injury. And so you can look at the slide there. We didn't include a lot of our presentations. I include a slide that has an illustration of a brain scan. It's one of the different scans. It shows the traumatized brain and the brain that has had relative safety and development. And there's some marked differences. So there's more disconnectivity. The different components of the brain are not working together. And the limbic system, the part of the brain that's sending emotional information like pain and loss and grief and fear, those things are getting activated more often, so there's more development. It's literally larger and more active. So people with traumatic injuries have more active nervous systems. Their heart is beating more actively, even in the resting state. We see disruptions to sleep, to digestion. So it's a measurable and literal injury. It's not just a metaphorical injury. And so one of the things that I think is really important, injured people do injured things, but those injured behaviors are often seen as bad behaviors. And bad behaviors, what do you do with those? You punish them, you judge them, you criticize them, shame, shame, and we try to make people feel bad about their bad behavior so they'll do differently. But shame really doesn't help us make changes. In fact, when it's a change that's challenging or really difficult, when it's something that's really hard to do, shame makes it harder. It just puts more bricks in our backpack. And so, but trauma is a real and measurable injury. I've often mentioned my, injured youth where I got hit by a truck when I was riding a motorcycle, and the doctor said I was very injured and I would be maybe hard to live with at times. And they were right. But I had understanding because my injuries, my bones were poking out of my body. And so my injuries were very apparent. So if I was a little cranky, it was apparent why. But when something happens that changes our brain and our heart and our nervous system in measurable ways, kids don't walk around with brain scanners on. Your patients, your adult patients, they're not walking around with heart monitors letting you know that I'm just experiencing an aroused parasympathetic nervous system right now. That's why I'm being moody and cranky and irritable and agitated. So it's important for us to understand this injury, because one of the things, I talk about New View and myself and my team, we want to make trauma training real, because we've seen a lot of training that's great and we're like, oh, that's great. And we've seen a lot of training that just helps you define the word trauma really good and not really tell you what to do with that understanding. And so that's something that we have to understand the injury of trauma, and we have to go forth into the work with that understanding, because emotions are contagious, and injured people hurt people and can provoke some pretty strong emotions from us in doing the work. So anyway, it's an injury, and we'll keep going. What's the symptoms are next. So I won't read those to you. You know what the symptoms of trauma are. So this is just a review. We think about things we don't want to think about. We remember things we don't want to remember. We have bad dreams. That's really one of the very prominent symptoms that's related to trauma. And it's not always about the trauma that we're dreaming about. Other lucid or frightening things. Our brain kind of cooks up and combines experience and fear and all kinds of other things from the corners of our brain. We don't even know where it comes from. So we have hyperarousal, and that's the physical part of how trauma leaves that lasting impression on our brain and on our body. We're more easily agitated, more easily overstimulated, sleep disturbance. You see that. We see bowels disrupted. We see when we talk about the injury of trauma, children, when they have significant trauma before age 7, are smaller as adults. It disrupts their physical development. Girls hit puberty earlier and boys hit puberty later on average when trauma is experienced significantly in early childhood, because what we were actually doing is seeing that the child's body is having to prioritize its development, which development is safe and okay to do now. But hyperarousal, these are the kids that are hyper and fidgety. I heard something. I think somebody, is that us or? Okay, yeah, somebody's not muted. So if we could help with that, that would be wonderful. This is one of our first times to get to try to do this live. We usually pre-record it all, and we are pre-recording this for another time. But so help us with the background noise. And I'm hoping my dogs don't come in and start slurping at their bowl, because I have 2 big stinky dogs that make a lot of ruckus when they're ready to have a drink or a nibble. So So hyperarousal, though, is the body's way of kind of reliving the experience. And hyperarousal, as well as those first category of symptoms, re-experiencing and intrusive symptoms, those can come out of the blue, or it can come in response to triggers, things that we see, hear, think about, remember, and experience somewhere in the environment. Some kind of environmental stimulus connects to that mental Rolodex, to that place in our brain, and it takes us back there again. So we're feeling feelings and thoughts and memories we don't want to think about and remember, and we're also having physical arousal and these sensations that are not comfortable. This causes people to be startled easily, to go from anxious to agitated to outburst relatively quickly. A lot of times when we see the angry person, we're not recognizing the agitation that started from an anxiety, a place of fear, anxiety, and those early injuries. And obviously if somebody's having an agitated outburst, you have to address that and safety need first. But avoidance and numbing is where we don't want to think about the pain. We do things consciously and subconsciously to not think about it. Avoidance, and we're going to talk more about that in a little bit, but avoidance and numbing, we a lot of times, or our emotional signals are indicating some need, indicating some issue. And when our emotions are electrical impulses, and when those electrical impulses get stronger and stronger, we have a need, and eventually I believe that part of our brain kind of goes numb. We've ignored that need long enough, and so we see long-term emotional numbing. People that feel extremes with emotions or feel little emotions. But again, avoidance can be, we all avoid sometimes. We all do things to not think about it, to take a break from life, to not be productive, to just relax, or to distract or whatever. And that's okay. But it becomes a problem when it becomes a problem. And then that's when it's keep preventing us from doing the things that we need to do. When it's preventing us from thinking about what we do need to think about, and from engaging in the tasks that we need to engage in. So we're ignoring our health. And so we'll talk more about that. But shame and guilt, fear and distrust, those are on there as well. You can read that. But one of the things that I think, now people are often, I think, shame seems kind of built in with certain types of traumatic injuries, survivor's guilt and some different things, but also people would feel sometimes ashamed because of how the trauma or the injury changed them. And also, I think people feel shamed because, well, if injured behaviors are perceived by the world as bad behaviors, then a lot of times they're perceived that way by the sufferer as well, by the injured person. And so, we'll talk about this. Oklahoma is the #1 state in the nation for traumatizing children, according to the Tulsa World. Yay, we're #1. No. What's that? We're having some sound disturbance again. If someone can help us with that. There, it's gone away, so thank you. Again, shame, a lot of times we feel ashamed because of how the world has taught us to view ourselves. But Oklahoma's #1 in the nation for traumatizing children. So there's a lot of normalized injuries here. A lot of people growing up injured, not realizing that they're injured. When the truck hit me, life changed a lot. I recognized the change and when and where and how it happened. But a lot of times, when the injuries have been repeated and frequent and regular and normalized, then it becomes par for the course. And then when I act out because of normal human injuries, I'm made to feel ashamed of myself. I'm judged, I'm punished, I'm criticized. And again, so I think part of it has to do with the internal change of trauma, that, something's happened to us and now we're different, but also it has to do with society's response to us, and school and work and family, how they respond to our real measurable human injuries. So we'll go on from there. And this is thinking about avoidance. Okay. As promised, I said in a few minutes. It's not that many minutes. So thinking more about avoidance, avoidance is what people do to not deal with the other symptoms. We don't want to remember bad things. We don't want to think about them and remember them and feel feelings about them. And we don't want to have physical discomfort, and we don't want to have shame and guilt and anxiety and fear and distrust. I forgot to cover fear and distrust. It's an anxiety disorder, of course. But so a lot of times avoidance develops as a response to try not to feel those feelings. But it is these injured behaviors that keep us injured. What all's on that slide?
Numbness, desensitization, avoiding social interaction,
Okay.
failure.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people are not achieving their destiny. Avoidance causes us to not become the people we are to be. A lot of times we become, desensitized, but we avoid, and then we adapt, and we get used to avoiding. And so, what else was there again, Will?
Avoiding social interaction, fear of effort,
Yeah.
failure,
Yeah.
conscious and subconscious attempts to escape others.
Yeah. So it's but yeah, a lot of times we know that we're doing this, but sometimes we don't realize, and that's when it becomes tricky. If we know we're doing it, then hopefully we gain the will to tackle and challenge that injured type of behavior. But it's when we're unaware of our injury and how it's affecting us, that can really be insidious. I heard somebody use the metaphor of a fly getting caught in an open bottle. A fly sometimes goes down into the bottle, and flies don't have very big brains, of course, so they get stuck. He can't find his way out. And the opening was right there. Freedom was right there. And so a lot of times we live within injuries that we can't see. I say that when we grow up in injured families, we grow up with a lot of detrimental familiarities, dysfunctional norms. So if it's just normal, we don't often realize the problematic nature of our own role in things once we have a role. So, but we'll continue.
Increased risk factors for dependence and addiction.
Okay, so increased risk factors for addiction. There's a lot of things. Now, one of the biggest things is if you're traumatically injured, you're going to be hurting more. And so I think it's really, really important when we look at the injuries of addiction, we have to examine the injuries of trauma, because people who have more traumatic stress and more mental illness and more of these types of injuries, they're more vulnerable. They're more desperate. They need relief. I mean, pain is an indicator of a problem, but it's also indicating that there is some need that needs to be addressed. And so when needs go unaddressed and unaddressed and unaddressed, then a lot of times people are looking for anything that will help them feel less pain, because a lot of injured people are doing things to not feel their feelings. And so what's the name of this slide again?
Increased risk factors for dependence and addiction.
Okay, so what else do we have there?
Loss, illness, depression.
Okay, so
pain.
Obviously, we have a lot of kids that experience being taken away from families, early loss of a parent or loved one, diagnosable or more severe mental illness. There's a lot of different things that are causing people to not want to feel their feelings. And so it's important for us to understand those injuries. And so there's another slide about addiction.
Next slide.
Yeah, I think so.
Substance abuse injuries.
Okay. So, all right. So when we think about substance abuse, trauma was usually the original injury for most people, as I mentioned before. And so, but the addiction starts to become an injury of its own. And I know that you guys know that. But when we damage our pleasure receptors, some things happen. Pleasure is a very strong motivator for our actions. And so when, you know, certain types of long-term drug abuse, when we're looking at things like some of the opioids, when we're looking at methamphetamine, we can cause significant, more than 10% damage to our neuroreceptors for pleasure, for dopamine. And so that really, really motivates us to do things. We do things because of what feels good. You know, we spend time with the people we want to spend time with. We eat the food we want to eat. You know, we make the, you know, enjoy the activities, the things that bring us pleasure, you know. And so I've often said this, there's a lot of people that become kind of dead in their eyes because their ability to kind of light up with life and natural pleasures has become quite diminished. And that's a shame. Now, there is a lot of elasticity in our brain, and the sooner we get to those substance abuse issues, obviously the less damage that we're going to have. And some types of drugs are going to not do the more long-term damage if we can just get people to stop before they kill themselves with them. So what else is on that? So I want to make sure.
Reliable form of avoidance.
Yeah.
Changes over time. Pleasure receptors, self-medicating.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things, and we're going to talk more about this. But substance abuse is reliable, and in many ways, it's socially acceptable. You know, what do you do when you're when you're stressed? You know, some people will take a walk. Some people say you smoke a cigarette. You know, when you've had a long day, you have a beer. You know, or and so substance use becomes normalized. And I'm not knocking a beer every now and then, or the smokers. I struggled with smoking for a really long time, so I'm not really trying to be holier than anyone on that. But it's very accessible, and there's a lot of people that don't mind killing you to put dollars in their pocket. And so I think it's really, really important for us to be aware of those risk factors, because if we are injured, then then the cigarette or the drink or the whatever that does take that edge off is it can really create a lot of risk. It can feel really good to finally have some relief. So which one is this?
Substance abuse injuries.
Yeah, substance abuse injuries. So, but people are engaging in a lot of problematic behaviors. Obviously, we're causing more disconnectivity in our brain. We're leading to greater cognitive problems. We're seeing a lot of psychosis. We'll see people that have bipolar or things that are diagnosed as schizophrenic, when a lot of it very much could have been substance induced. And so, and those people are often very injured. So, which chicken became before which egg, it kind of becomes a moot point when people have come to injure themselves so severely. But this obviously injures our, functionality. It injures our relationships. It injures our ability to relate to the world. And so, but this started somewhere else. Did I cover that one? Okay. Hey, are we having any questions or comments? Okay. Will is checking out some of the rocks that you want to throw at me, or the questions or comments that you have. So certainly I love for this to be interactive. And, it was always really weird kind of getting used to doing this pre-recording thing, but it really helps to know that you are there now. It helps me a lot to know that you're there now. You may be there in your PJs, which, and more power to you if you are. So
this person says his name is.
We don't need to say names. I mean, he may not want his name shared. Okay. Well, then
he was talking about how he had a traumatic brain injury in 1991, and so since then he's tried to put his injury towards helping those in prison to learn how to avoid.
That's awesome. And thank you for that comment. Isn't it amazing how sometimes when we hit some of our own walls, it helps us to help others. And I think that's part of, I think, the sense of community that we're that we're losing these days, because the more people serve themselves, the less happy they are. The more self-serving their actions are, it seems, the less fulfilled they are. And so we have to watch out for ourselves, but certainly helping out and the injured populations in incarceration, they're certainly probably our most injured populations. And so there's lots of injured little boys and injured little girls. And once they're not cute anymore and they keep being injured and doing injured things, society takes them away. And increasingly, at higher rates for brown skinned people, for people of color. And so, any other comments or questions?
No.
Okay, so we'll keep going. Thank you for that.
So false rehabilitation.
Okay, so and we're going to transition into that as far as false rehabilitation. Prison doesn't really work. Prison serves a necessary function. There's people, if they're going to stab your face off, then we need them to go away. We need them to be removed so we don't get our faces stabbed off. For people don't hurt our children. We need violent and dangerous people to be removed from society. But the last statistics, I can't believe I didn't include this in here, but Oklahoma is obviously number one at a lot of bad things. We're number one in incarcerating females. And that's not just nationwide, that's worldwide. We put more mommies in jail than anywhere else. And maybe that's because we got more bad Oklahomans. We're bad here in Oklahoma. Bad. No, we're injured. And so we're number two in incarcerating men nationwide. And there's so many of those. I forget the percentage, are nonviolent and usually drug-related offenses. Substance abuse, again, is one of those really accessible ways for people to try not to feel their feelings. For injured little boys and injured little girls to try to turn it off for a little while. And people deserve to feel better. But again, incarceration is really not doing it. Is this the one where I talk about private prisons?
Yeah.
Okay, what's on this one?
So $7 billion.
Okay. So there's some statistics there. $7 billion is spent by state governments to incarcerate their people. $7 billion. And so again, some bad guys got to go away. But people who was just trying not to feel their feelings, that's too much. And again, we've criminalized substance abuse. We've made it okay to hate on those people. For how dare they, and we often project our reality. If we didn't have that problem, then they shouldn't either, and so you can look at some of those statistics there. Is this about recidivism as well? Substance abuse is not treated well in prison. There's access. Bad guards who not paid well, so they're incentivized by big time, gangsters to bring in drugs and pretty much anything you want if you have the money in prison. So there's certainly accessibility, and there's all kinds of injured influences there in an injured environment where you almost have to be injured to get along. And so as far as incarceration, we see that, people that are locked up, that are off of the drugs, that if they are able to sober up and detox in prison, they're 13 times more likely to drop dead of an overdose within 2 weeks upon reentry. So they're not, upon their release, they're not being rehabilitated. And often, again, injured people are going into a very injured place and coming out more injured, with more pain to suppress, more nightmares, and more, traumatic adaptation to try to heal from or avoid or medicate or something. And so prison is not working.
And so we see really high rates of recidivism. I forget, is that on there? Okay. People are returning at high rates, and America seems to be doing it among the worst in the world. Again, America, we have this nationalist idea that we're like number one at everything, and we've had to swallow some pretty hard realities over the past few years. We're not the best in the world at everything, and we don't have all the answers. And so there's a lot of countries that are actually rehabilitating their injured people and having better success rates upon reentry. But it is the programs in America that are actually addressing trauma and understanding that their population is highly injured and giving them some outlets for vocation and case management with placement. These are the programs that are having more success and not seeing those revolving doors of people coming back into the system again and again. And so I forget where the prison was, but one of these trauma-informed facilities had a mural on the wall. It said, "You are here as punishment. You are not here to be punished." So we're not going to mistreat you for being here, being away from your family and your life and your role and your freedom. I believe that is punishment enough. And there are people out there, we coddle these prisoners, and the people do deserve their dignity, and different prisons have different standards, certainly. But did I cover that, or did I just kind of go on to my own usual soapbox
So
there?
the next one is talking about feeling the pain, injuries, and suppression. How people suppress.
What about the private prison thing? Didn't I say that? Did I talk about that? Well, I just want to say, and maybe I do have this built into the presentation later. I'm proud in some ways that Oklahoma seems to be trying to get away from the private prison system, because there's definitely a slide in. I remember this. But anyway, I guess I'm doing that slide now because it's in my brain. But there are entities out there that lobby our government to try to make sure there's as many things out there as legal and as many reasons as possible to incarcerate citizens. And they profit per unit, per capita, per inmate, per human life. And they profit off of human suffering. That's not ethical. This is an ethics presentation today, so I have to say ethics a few times in order for me to catch up. I think I have to say ethics every 12 minutes. So that's my ongoing joke that I borrowed from somebody else. So thanks, Robert. But again, for there to be entities out there that are profiting off of these injured populations and disparate rates, regarding race and different, and demographics, financial and otherwise, it's not right. It's not moral. It's not ethical. And again, it's these big dollar groups that are influencing our government. It's the big dollars that are writing our rules and saying what's humane and how many can be crammed into a space and what kind of food is acceptable for that person. Because most of these people were injured as little boys and little girls. They just didn't figure out how to quit being injured. And so, and people can heal. That's one of the important things that I want to get to today is people really can heal. We can't rewind and erase trauma from our, neurology, but we can do something about it. And we can really empower the survivor. So feeling the pain is next. All right. So what's this one about? Oh,
Emotional and social harm.
Okay. So a lot of times emotional suppression becomes a big problem. Now, unpleasant emotions or, physical discomfort, obviously we don't want to feel bad. Who wants to feel bad? Not me. But we have to pay attention to these neurological and physiological signals because they are trying to tell us something. So to just simply try to turn them off is going to allow for other injuries to occur. We need to know if something sucks so we can do something about it. Anger and sadness are what I call negative motivators. That's our brain and our body saying, we don't like this. And if we can affect it and change it for ourselves, we need to. Now, a lot of times what a lot of people do with their injured families and their injured influences and their injured norms and their injured instincts is make things worse with the way they respond to their emotions. But their emotions are not bad. And so we need to recognize our physical pain, is important. It's important for us to know if we sprain our ankle that, every time we set, our foot down on the ground at, like lightning per second, a signal is going through our nervous system saying, ow, don't do that. So it's letting us know to take some weight off of that and stay off of it and give it some opportunity to heal. Brace it if you can, something. If you touch something that's hot, a signal is going through your system saying, don't do that. It's hot. It's bad for you. And so we need those signals. We are physically and emotionally and socially harmed when we don't pay attention to our signals. Emotions are not bad or wrong, but we need to know what they're trying to tell us. And so, is that, what's that? Did I say it all? Is there anything that I didn't say?
Men and women suppressing for different reasons.
Yes, I think that's important. People are suppressing emotions because it's unpleasant, because it's unpopular, maybe because it's expected. If you're a man, you don't cry. You're not supposed to use the tear ducts that you're physiologically born with. You're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to fight it back, and it's okay to yell or stomp around because that makes you tough, and everything. It's okay to show emotions that way, or whatever. And women, are often taught, you've got to be strong. You've got to keep it together for the family. And, so these become expectations. These become norms. And so I think men and women probably oppress for different reasons. What do you guys think? If you want to throw out there in the comments, why do men and women suppress emotions for different reasons? Some of the reasons are probably the same. We don't want to feel that pain. We don't want to acknowledge that. So anyway, I'll be interested in your thoughts in the chat on why men and women do that differently. So, what time is it, Will?
It is 2:18.
2:18. What slide number is this?
This is number 10.
Okay, that's good. We'll break, I believe, at 3:00. So I want to keep an eye on the time. We got plenty of time. Keep it on rolling.
Next one is cycles of regret. Injured behaviors doing more damage.
Okay. There's a lot of people that when they do something that they shouldn't do, they feel bad. And, those feelings, you can tell, sometimes their remorse there is sincere. Obviously, if they've broke their own phone because they had an outburst or, destroyed something or got themselves in trouble and it caused some negative consequence for themselves, then that's a different kind of sincere regret. That's a regret. Of course, but a lot of times people really do feel bad about how they've affected themselves and others. People blow up, people implode, people go through their cycles of depression. They do that thing that they do, whatever it is, that thing that they do, and then they regret it and they come back around. Stress comes back around. And then we're going to do something different next time until the feeling, till the trigger, till the experience comes up again. That's why we've really got to plan for our stressors. We've got to plan for our triggers as best that we can, the ones we can anticipate, the ones that are repetitive and patterned. So what's the name of the slide again?
Cycles of regret.
Yes, okay. So when people engage in, I say this a lot, injured behaviors, it leads to new injuries. It compounds the initial problems, and it causes new ones: physical health problems, emotional problems, and social problems. And so, and one of the things we see people are going to, is this the one about spending?
Spending.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So yeah, impulse control is a really big problem. You know, we've got people that are gambling, that are shopping, that are eating, that are doing things impulsively to try to gain some control over their emotion, to gain some pleasure, to feel some control, to not feel their feelings. And so and then coming back around with that cycle of shame. I've done it again. I've blown money I couldn't afford. I've eaten too much. And so it comes back around again and again. So we need to get people to recognize their cycles of regret. And because this is a merry-go-round we got to get off of eventually. We see people that have repetitive problematic relationships, sexual dysfunction, people that pick the wrong partner again and again and again and keep doing the dysfunctional dance and just finding a new partner to do the dance with. And so we see, repetitive, dysfunction in family patterns, educational outcomes, health outcomes, the way we eat, the way we work, the way we recreate, the way we interact and communicate. How we interact with one another. And so, and also substance abuse, you guys who treat people with who are struggling with addiction, injuries, they mean it when they say it. A lot of times, they really do feel that deep shame, that the regret of relapse, of coming back around. And so, I believe that a lot of times it's sincere and it's genuine. They really do, mean it till they forget why they quit, and then they get back into to life, the grind, and then the stressors and the triggers. And then they, for whatever reason, we allow ourselves to engage in that behavior again. And then we say, oh yeah, now I remember why I sincerely never wanted to do this again. And so, so I think we have to help people prepare for the discomfort. I have a slide later on, and I almost named the slide, "This is going to hurt," because people, I think, sometimes are expecting healing or coming out of addiction to be easy. Some magic pill or spell, and it is going to be hard. But so I think I covered that one pretty good.
Next is capital medicine and systems.
Okay, capital medicine and systems of care. Yeah. So I know. I'm just kind of thinking about how I want to say this. It feels like sometimes everybody's benefiting, but the people who are supposed to be benefiting from services. When you look at a lot of the systems that exist today, pharmaceutical companies are doing pretty good. Yeah. And the doctors, they roll up in pretty nice cars, Guess you can manage to eke out a living as a therapist, And then, of course, the people who spend the most time with people in hospitals and residential care, they don't get much training or much compensation. They have really the most impact on who gets to help or, hinder, the healing process for kids and adults in treatment. And so, what do I say in
Focused on recovery.
Okay, so I feel like a lot of these systems seek to kind of just maintain themselves. How many systems are actually there to get people better and see them not come back anymore? We're treating people. Again, Pepsi Cola wants us to be consumers of Pepsi Cola, and I like Pepsi, and I'm not being paid to say that. And I'll drink one a week. I'll drink one Pepsi a week. But the thing is, they want me to be a consumer of their service because that means they want me to keep consuming. And I don't like calling patients, survivors, human beings, consumers. I don't care for it because what it means is we want you to consume. That's your job. That's your role. You consume. You do your part. Is this where I talk about maintaining dependence? Okay, what else is on this slide? Yeah, so we're enabling them to stay dependent and to expect somebody else to fix their problem. You know, it's the guy in the white coat that's going to fix me, or the gal or the girl in the white coat that's going to fix me, you know. And if they got the answer for me, yeah, they're an excellent doctor. And if they don't have the answer for me, they suck. They're a bad doctor. And either way, I don't have to think about what I need to do differently. And so, so we'll talk about that more. But what else is here?
Profitable systems, common products and services.
Yeah. Yeah, I said that.
I think you got it.
Okay, I think that we have to really examine, you know, the options that we're being presented with. Life's kind of like a cookie jar, and you can only pull cookies out of the cookie jar that are in there. And so, but once we have some consciousness, once we have some awareness, we get to make our own cookies. We get to decide some things for ourselves and not just accept the system exactly precisely as it was presented, because there's some good things about our capital medicine system. But I'm going to express an opinion. I don't believe capitalism belongs in medicine. I don't believe that there should be able to be groups that are their bottom line is to make as much money as possible and to use chemical interventions to do so, because they've got sales teams, marketing teams that push their product, and those people are not well informed about about those chemicals. Their job is to sell you on it. Take you out to steak dinners and give you plushies and give you really cool mouse pads and coffee cups and different things. You know, you ask how many doctors, when they get schmoozed by, the pharmaceutical reps, are they actually talking about the drugs? And is a company going to tell you honestly if their drug is bad for you, or if it has a downside, or are they going to be realistic about that downside? What happens when we trust, Boeing to self-regulate? You know, what happens when we, trust industries to just, just tell us when things are safe, and let them, define their own bottom line. So I think that we really have to be careful with capital medicine, because anytime there's an opportunity to cut corners for $1, there's going to be somebody that's willing to do it, despite your life, despite my life, and certainly despite the lives of the poor, Oklahomans throughout that don't have resources. So I think that we challenge capital medicine, and I think a lot of doctors aren't going to like me. We need doctors. We need doctors, but we need good doctors that treat as means towards an end. We want to see. Now, there are some people that will require medication throughout their life for pain management, and also maybe for psychiatric medication. Some people have those severe debilitating disorders that we have no other answers. But the opioid epidemic was created because we allowed these pharmaceutical companies to tell us what was safe and tell us what was legal. We lock up the drug dealer on the corner, usually because he's brown, or he or she is brown. But the drug dealer in the white coat in the sports car that has laws that say what he's doing is ethical and moral, we don't always get the same justice for those cats. So there's been a lot of misinformation about some of the most popular psychiatric medications that are used today. But and I'm going to talk about that just a little bit. And again, and this is where, as clinicians, as psychiatrists, do good work. Make sure people are taking good care of themselves and see if we can get them better and challenging themselves to cope naturally, because we can be known for those ethical clinicians that do good work and help them get better and send them on their way, help them recognize when they're making progress. Because if we're there just to keep them coming to support our paycheck, then there's something wrong here. There's something wrong here. And so, again, now being in, as we work in private practice, That's one of the things. When we discharge them, when we do less service, we get less money. I still challenge you and encourage you to show them when they're making progress, when they don't need weekly anymore. Let them know that when we can, our goal is to see you get better and to see you get to that maintenance stage. And you'll be known as one of the best clinicians in town that helps them get better. And they'll come back when they need you. This is about good ethical practice. And so I'm catching up on the word ethics a few times also, if you guys hadn't noticed. So doing good work. I remember my grandpa's chiropractor. He never took insurance. $15 every visit. And he said, and Papa would ask him, when do I need to come back? He said, you'll know. Some chiropractors will have you come back as long as you'll keep coming back and make you think you need adjustments, twice a month forever. Maybe you do. I'm not qualified to say, but there's some, incentive for them to keep you as a consumer, a dependent consumer. And so there's a lot of things we need to inform the public on, some basic things about wellness and about their own injuries, about their own needs, and let them make some of those decisions in a truly informed way. Let's give people some of the ingredients so they at least can decide what kind of cookies they want to put in their jar. So this is next is another capital medicine, or?
Capital medicine, proper.
Okay, yeah, profit over people. I'm not done with that soapbox. Sorry, people. Now, I was astounded. Pharmaceutical companies, again, they're the ones that educate doctors about their drugs. And that seems like a pretty big conflict of interest to me. It's okay if Nike wants to tell me which the best shoe to wear, because, I'm not that good on the court anymore. It doesn't really matter.
Shoes don't affect your immediate well-being.
Yeah, my shoes, don't, affect my life or death right now. I mean, some may, bad shoes, obviously give you a bad foot problem or whatever. But we cannot allow people with such a vested interest and a record for greed and harm to tell us what's best for us. We need to use our brain. We were given one, we need to use it. And we need to seek some of those answers instead of just accepting what a white coat says. And so, but pharmaceutical companies inform the doctors, they inform the public, and they lie. They have misinformed us and on the risks, and that's why the opioid epidemic was great. I jumped ahead before. What's on this one?
Pharmaceutical companies educate doctors and
So that-
marketing teams, license information. You've already covered.
Yeah. Okay. So I've said everything that's on there, but again, it's not okay. It's not okay that we've been lied to. And I want to talk a little bit more in specifics about psychiatry, about this speculative medical practice. Is that next?
Yeah.
Okay. Speculative medical practice after a swig of coffee. Have I upset anyone on the switchboard yet? Okay. Okay. Very good. So I'm just going to say this right now. Modern psychiatry is harming people. Say it again. Modern psychiatry is harming people. It is necessary for some, and it is beneficial for some to some extent. It is massively overutilized. And so it is a speculative medical practice. SSRIs and SNRIs, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors and selective neuroepinephrine reuptake inhibitors. If you say that 10 times, you'll get smarter. Makes me feel smart just to say stuff like that. I'm surprised I was able to get through it. But those things are being used, and those are some of the most popular psych medications today. And so, but one of the things that we're not doing, when I broke my leg, they had some pretty cool tests to telling me exactly what kind of injury I had. They had x-rays, and you can take blood tests if you can take different scans of your organs or your brain, and you can do different things. But when it comes to what chemicals we're going to put in to alter your neurological chemistry, we're just going to try some stuff. I mean, an informed, hypothesis informed by pharmaceutical companies. Most human problems do not require a chemical compound to be inserted into our system. But there are believed to be 15 serotonin receptor sites in the brain. That's the place that processes those chemicals that help you feel good. And these chemicals are undirectable. We hope it goes to the right place. We hope it does. If not, whoops, we'll try another. And so now I want you guys to do some research, because this is not just because Jeremy said so. Legal findings, things that these companies had to belly up to later. These drugs massively, they overreported the benefits, they underreported serious risks. Because if you don't need extra endorphins, if you don't need a boost in your neurotransmitters, guess what? You might become depressed such that you're impulsively suicidal or aggressive or homicidal. Whoops. Sorry about that. Let's try another chemical. They did, and the thing is, the FDA, the wheels have been greased a little bit. It used to take drugs quite a long time to be studied, didn't it? And now they come out a lot quicker. And now we get to slap a liability statement on there and tell you all the things that, it might happen, and if you didn't comprehend that, liability statement on the commercial with the happy music or whatever, that's okay. They've covered their rear end. And so the thing is, now they did have to admit later now, that they did exaggerate and in some instances just flatly lied about these benefits. But the cat's out of the bag. You're going to tell everybody to quit using SSRIs and SNRIs now? How are you going to do that? We've altered the neurological chemistry of masses of people. And so, there was a bullet on there that I'm forgetting. The fourth one. What is?
Common side effects benefiting some up to mention.
Oh yeah. And there are people who do benefit. Again, it's kind of like, it's hit and miss. Oh, we found that it actually works for this one. And some people it works long term, but the majority of people who do use these psych meds for like anxiety or depression, they quit working as effectively after 6 to 9 months. And then what do? Yep, they increase the dosage and then they increase the dosage, and eventually they'll usually get to where they can't, max out that chemical anymore. And there's can be all kinds of side effects and different things, or maybe we'll try a different chemical. And so, I believe that doctors and pharmacies like the system just fine the way that it is. But it's you therapists that have the ability to really, really make the difference, to really inform the change. I believe therapists need to be paid more like doctors, and doctors need to be paid more like therapists, and maybe spend a little bit more time with their patients instead of trying to shuffle them through. I do have a bone to pick. We plan around the doctor's lives and for them to spend 5 minutes with a patient. And so, again, why do we prioritize around what the doctor does? Because his units are more expensive than ours. That's it. Not because he's having more of an impact on the lives of the majority of patients. So I get kind of pumped up about that, if you can't tell. You guys are the ones out there doing the work and spending the time and feeling the feelings and taking those steps with patients and survivors, helping turn victims into survivors. You guys are the ones doing that. I'll talk more about that later, but I get long-winded sometimes. I wanted to make sure you guys heard me say that because that's what I'm really strongly advocating for. psych medications are needed sometimes, but they're overutilized. And we need to treat people when it means to an end. When people are traumatized and in crisis, sometimes a medication can be good to help stabilize so they can regain some stability and ability to think. But anything that just says you should take this forever, we need to look at that a little bit. And I'm not qualified. I want to stay within my ethical qualifications and say I'm not qualified to tell people they shouldn't take medications. I am going to still defer to the doctor, but I'm going to also remember that the doctor is who feeds him, who puts the cookies in his jar, And so I just want to really remember that and inform patients as much as possible so they can truly make an informed choice. So that's about speculative medical practice.
Pain to exploit.
And any comments or questions?
Hey, Jeremy, it's Mark.
Yes, sir.
It looks like you're at a pause. You're supposed to break at 2:45 for 15 minutes. It's up to you. I'll leave it up to you, but just.
Okay, I didn't realize when we were supposed to break.
Yeah.
Is what time is it right?
The 2:45 or 3?
Okay.
3 o'clock. I'm sorry. 3 o'clock.
Okay. I think we should just go. Yeah, we'll go ahead and go till 3.
Perfect. My bad.
I think we're on a good track here. I initially thought we were starting at 1, so I was all chomping at the bit, ready to go. But okay. So pain to exploit.
The opioid epidemic was created with drugs that addict.
Okay. Yeah. So I was initially asked. I did this presentation up in Washington County, and I got to talk after one of our state congressmen. That was a real honor for me. Oklahoma's been hit hard. Oklahoma's been hit hard by the opioid epidemic. And so, and I feel like sometimes it's no accident. Is this about high Oklahoma ACEs?
No.
What's the first bullet on
It's
that?
like physical and emotional pain creating vulnerability.
Okay, yeah. So again, we are an injured state, and when you have more pain, you have more vulnerability, you have more desperation, and that's easily exploited. Again, there's all kinds of people with their palms out or ready to just take you for what you have when it comes to your need, your desperation. What's next on the
Opioid epidemic creating drugs that addict.
yeah. So
Crises down.
okay, so one of the things that we see, this has been a crazy last year. It's really required a lot of change and adaptation and stress. The past few years for some of us truth tellers has really been challenging. Again, what was that bullet? It was yeah. So as far as the pandemic and different things, we've really seen mental health spike. We've seen substance abuse problems spike. I heard just yesterday in some news released by the White House, overdose deaths were up 27% over the last year. That's more than a quarter more people are engaging in such injured behaviors that they commit the ultimate injury. And so that's significant. And so, but people who are hurting are easy to exploit. What else is on that slide? Well, I don't want to forget anything.
States like Oklahoma hit hard because of care.
Yeah. Did I cover the other bullets though?
Yeah, you did.
Okay. And I do feel like I'm an Okie. I was born and raised in Oklahoma, and I feel like the experts sometimes feel the need to come in and enlighten us poor Okies because we don't know any better. And also, I feel like our job in the role of the country is to shut up and produce oil. There's not a lot of value coming from other places. They don't got a lot of love for Oklahoma sometimes. It seems like. So I'm very defensive and proud, and I want to protect our state. But it just seems like, you know, when it comes to the opioid epidemic and you look at the different states that had settlements and you look at the different states that were really hit hard and had Oklahomans and their citizens dying, you know, we were hit the hardest because it's just Oklahoma. Who cares? Go dump those opioids in Oklahoma. You know, go do that professional legalized drug dealing in Oklahoma. It's just, you know, there's a bunch of rednecks down there do oil and, you know, and corn. That was still a thing we do. So we've got Thunder basketball, right? We don't have Russell Westbrook anymore. So pain makes us easy to exploit, and normalized injuries make us blind to it. We live in an injured forest, and sometimes we don't recognize it because of all the falling trees. You know, it's just what you do. It's just your turn to fall. It's just your turn to be injured. And so, anyway, what's next?
Next is Johnson & Johnson.
A family company. Yeah. And you know, and companies like this. Now, I don't want to pick on just Johnson & Johnson. They paid us $572 million, and we're happy to do so. They're like, oh, what? We don't even have to pay a full billion? Whew. That's a drop in their ocean. And so Purdue Pharma has done some really, I mean, evil, just evil. Let's call it what it is. You know, if they were brown in the ghetto, they had been locked under the jail. But groups like the McKinsey consultant group, you know, that help people develop these strategies for marketing these poisons and launching them upon our people. You know, because the reason I say pain to exploit, look at what they've done to us. You know, they developed and oversold this concept of you've got undertreated pain. You know, they paid millions to advocacy groups to go and advocate and sell this concept to doctors. Look, your patients are being undertreated for their pain, and we've got the answer. You know, and some of the things, and again, this isn't Jeremy said so. Guys, look it up. It's a matter of legal documented record. Johnson & Johnson, that family company that wants to save you from COVID, you know, they do things like that. They have different divisions, you know, they make baby powder or something for your baby, or, you know, they do lots of different things, but they also make poisons. And they launch those on us, and they try to make just as much money off of us as they can. And they knew they were doing it. In fact, their scientists, their in-house team of scientists, advised and protested against their misleading and unethical marketing practices. The smart guys on the team said, "No, this ain't right. We're not, you know, we're not being honest, and this is dangerous. How we're presenting these drugs to the community." And they were ignored. And so there were doctors that were prescribing hundreds of thousands of opioids, these poisons, and some of them were prescribing them at rates that I believe somebody said something like every Oklahoman could have had, you know, thousands. And instead of seeing those red flags, those doctors were targeted, again, by sales professionals, people whose bottom line was to make you as much money as possible. And good ethical doctors were saying, guys, I'm worried here. I'm thinking we're turning some of these guys into addicts. No, they were taught to dismiss the concerns of doctors and continue to push the drugs. You know, these reps would walk into clinics with people passing out and barfing in the waiting room and lined up out the door. Red flag. You know, and they paid us $572 billion, and they're still going strong. Again, if they were brown-skinned people in the hood, they'd be under the jail right now. So there's murderers there. There's murderers there. They knew what they were doing to us. And so that's why we've got to be our own advocate. That's why we've got to ask questions. That's why we've got to inform ourselves. Because we can't count on capital business and capital medicine to take care of us. I think it's really, really important. There are so many headlines in this day and age. It's really easy to glaze over and forget. The next outrage, the next atrocity, the next shock and awe, or whatever. It comes, and we forget that these family companies, Purdue Pharma, those billionaire family, they were trying to pull as much of their assets and money out of that company as possible because they knew they were going down. They knew that was blood money, injured people that just needed help, that just wanted to feel better. It's evil. And so sorry to be on my soapbox about that, but it's up to us to inform the public and be truth tellers. To be truth tellers, especially when it might just save somebody's life. We can empower people to their own recovery. So I think I covered Johnson & Johnson pretty good, but there's others out there. But I struggle when I hear them say a family company, because they knew they tore a lot of families apart. They killed a lot of mommies and daddies, sons and daughters. Yeah, what time is it? Are we getting close to that?
It is 2:51.
Okay, let's do one more slide.
Less education and more injuries.
Yeah, okay. So again, back to Oklahoma Aces. #1 in the nation, according to the Tulsa World. Hurts my Okie pride. But also, we're getting what we pay for. 46th in the nation in educational spending, 46th in the nation in treatment spending, getting what we pay for. And it's not because the dollars aren't there. We elect leaders who give all the breaks to those guys that want to lock us up and addict us. That's true. We do more of what we've always done, we're going to keep getting what we've always got. But people who are sick, people who are injured, people who are less educated are easy to deceive. They're easy to divide and make us think that we're enemies with one another, while the rich guys, the really evil, are laughing all the way to the bank. They own our government. And so we've got to challenge that. And we've got to do that by being informed. Knowledge is power. Awareness creates choice. And a lot of people don't realize the choice that they have, the power that they have in their own life. I get kind of excited about this. I get kind of pumped up. I get my teaching finger out. But we've got to take care of our state. We've got to take care of our injuries, and we've got to do something different. Because what's the last bullet on there?
I think leaders who love money more than people.
Yeah. So, yeah. We got big business heads in there running things for the common people. Big business stit, and others that make the decisions on behalf of the common individual, you and me. Those people care about big business, and they care more about pharmaceutical companies, and they care more about a lot of people that are not about our citizens. And so I think it's just really, really important for us to take a look in the mirror and say, you know what? Part of how we have elected our leadership is part of our injuries. We're the fly in the bottle that realizes if we just put some people in there that are not evil, then we may be actually able to accomplish something, to move forward. Human capacity is amazing, but it's also reckless, and it's sending us over the edge. And so I want to look and see if there's questions or comments, or if I've really upset anyone or irritated. Because I've got more controversy coming up. So I would probably at least keep you awake after lunch. Again, I hope you're up moving around.
So here's a comment from someone.
All right. Is it nice or are they mean?
No,
I'm just
she
kidding.
says, I fully agree with you. My ex-husband is a physician, and the pharmaceutical companies would come to Woodward and take us all out. Us and the local docs and their spouses
Yeah.
to the most expensive steakhouse in town would push their new drugs.
Absolutely.
I'd ask them about bad side effects, and first they would say that there was not any, but I'd say to them, but what about such and such? And then they denied knowing any of the bad effects, so I'd ask them to show us the pamphlets that are required to show the side effects. Then I would read it to all the other physicians and their spouses. Now all the other docs and their spouses didn't want the free samples, whereas before they loaded up on lots of drugs.
Thank you for asking those questions. Don't just accept the what we're being spoon fed. because we know why. A lot of those people, the doctors and the pharmacies that have these miracle drugs, they don't take them. They're going to take that crap, but they'll get you. They want you to. So thank you for that comment, and for using our brains, because doctors are necessary. So they're heroes when they do their job right, or they're part of the problem, or they're preserving the elite. And so thank you for that. Other questions or comments? Anything else? Okay. Well, I think now is a good time for us to take a break. Mark, how long you giving them? 10, 15? and begin to respect everybody's time.
Okay, I'm hopping off.
Okay, well, we will get going again, and if there's more folks jumping back in, then by all means, I'm always glad when I see the numbers going up after the break. It means there's at least some people I didn't run off. So that's always kind of nice to see the dedication for those CEs. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and continue. And I just want to, thank everybody again for participating today, and use this platform to just share more about some of the good things that we're doing real quick. We've got one training per month on our website with live chat, just like we're doing today. Some of them are some of our favorites that we've already recorded, and we've got a couple of new ones. Structuring therapeutic process to be more trauma-informed, ethical, and effective is both supervision and ethics. That's next month, and it's really one of my favorite workshops. I just have to say that. And then in June, we've got a brand new one about dysfunctional adaptation and how we can bring ourselves some healing there. And we've got a really fun one later in the year. Part 2 of our music and movement series. And so Hurts for Your Hurts is what we're calling that, and how we can utilize such natural mediums to activate and stimulate healing in our brains. So my doggies are here and apparently maybe needing a little bit of love. So I'm going to give them a little bit of attention and then tell them to get on. But anyway, don't forget to check us out at newviewhealingsolutions.org. You can send us an email, info@newviewhealingsolutions.org. It's a long name. When we got the domain, there was a high school in Nevada that had something shorter that we were going to use. But check us out and see what we're doing. When we do hold events for CEUs, we have discounts, 25% off for seniors, for veterans, and for state employees. And so we just appreciate you supporting us so we can go do the things that we're doing for free for the parts of our state and the systems of care that need us. And so, but anyway, we hope to see you there. Don't forget to check us out and let us know if you want to join our team or need a copy of our presentation today. We'll be glad to provide that to you. So rolling right along, I think we had kind of stopped at a good place, but one of the people that shared a comment, I just really appreciated that, because it's really in keeping. This is the slide. It really is ethical to challenge the status quo if the status quo is not ethical. And there's a lot of norms that have become just accepted but are not acceptable. It's not just ethical, it's imperative that we challenge the status quo that is allowing people to be harmed, allowing people to remain dependent when they don't have to be. And so challenge the status quo. And the person that shared the comment with whose husband was a physician, that was one of the ways that you challenge that status quo. You ask questions, and you be a seeker of truth and a teller of the truth. Truth has been in short supply over the past few years. I won't go on any rants about it, but we have to seek the truth, because the truth, knowledge really is power, and it does give us a choice, but we can only make choices that we are aware of. So we have to watch who's making us aware. So, okay. So moving right along. What's next on the agenda?
Understanding and interpreting pain.
Understanding and interpreting pain. So pain is a necessary thing. We need to feel bad sometimes, and because there is no perfect world to exist within, we have to feel bad sometimes, so we are motivated for change. Emotional pain is indicating of a problem. Physiological pain, again, it's identifying some type of problem. And so I mentioned, if I put my hand on the fire, it burns my hand, and thousands of miles per second through my nervous system, my brain is informed of this. So I say, ouch, don't do that. Now, a lot of times what people are learning to do is to suppress their pain, to ignore their pain, to medicate their pain. We use lots of different forms of emotional Novocaine. You know, I think that would really make a good name for a punk band. If I ever start a punk band, that's one of that was on the list of possible names. Emotional Novocaine. But people, you know, imagine if you put Novocaine on that hand and you slapped it on the fire again. Y'all smell something? Yeah. We need to know that there's something happening there. So we need to interpret it. We need to identify our experiences. Is this the one that's got ICC on it? No? No? Okay. So, but we need to know what our pain is trying to tell us. When our brain and our body doesn't like something, we need to know why. And we need to explore that need rather than just suppress it, because that leads to long-term injuries. I don't need a pill to make me think my life don't suck if I can do something about it. You know, if there's changes that are within my capacity, why deaden my senses into dull acceptance of this gloomy reality? No, we have the power to change. And we have the capacity to influence our ongoing development based on what we do once we know. And so what's this slide again?
Slide is understanding and interpreting pain. No emotion.
Okay, yeah. So and again, you know, the guy in the corner, you know, in the long jacket that says, "Hey, buddy, you know, you want some of this dope?" You know, we know, you know, that's a kind of a comic book character version of the drug dealer on the street. But you know, we forget about the guy in the white coat. We forget about the RX. But there's lots of emotional Novocaine. There's legal and illegal, you know, pharmaceutical and street. And so the pharmaceutical stuff is often cleaner, you know, and you don't get shot at as much for going to get it. But a lot of times it's prolonging our injuries. It's maintaining our dependence. And it's making us believe that we need something outside of ourselves to feel better. Again, sometimes those meds are necessary. And I'm not going to make it all about meds. We're about done talking about that. We're going to talk about some other pretty serious stuff. So I covered that one though, didn't I?
Challenging learned helplessness.
Okay. You know, when you haven't had lots of good opportunities or options, when you've had lots of injuries, when you know, when things just don't seem to work out, human beings are very adaptable. I got a whole presentation coming up about adaptation, but we're very adaptable. We have to. Life must adapt to survive because things keep changing. And to adapt to danger or dysfunction means that we become part of that danger and dysfunction. I like the way I put that. So no, but again, it's against our nature to be helpless. For us to be unable to get away from victimization. It's against our nature to just be harmed without taking action. And so, but learned helplessness happens. The world can be a really frustrating place. It can be a hurtful place. It can be a discouraging place. And sometimes we learn to do it to ourselves. And again, I see so many people that have adapted to negativity and pessimism and poor odds at life. And so, you know, the world does it to us first, then we start to do it to ourselves. And so I'm not going to be one of these jolly, you know what's that just says, just think positively, you know, and we're going to talk more about how and why we can think more productively. But it's not just about, you know, about thinking more positively. What's this slide again?
Challenging learned helplessness.
Yeah. Okay. Challenging learned. Yeah. So yeah. One of the things too, you know, when we think about traumatic reenactment, I know that a lot of you guys, this is just a review, but initially when we exist within chaos, danger, or dysfunction, we have to learn some kind of dysfunctional skills to get by, because, you know, when you're little, especially, you know, you can't say, you know what, this seems like a pretty dysfunctional environment. I think I'm going to pack it up and move on down the road. When you're little, you're at the mercy of your environment. You know, when you're little, your feet can't reach the pedals and you don't have your own car and you don't have your own money and you can't change your family or your food or your home or your community or your school. You're there. And so if you're not able to get away from bad things, then you have to adapt to them. And so later on, sometimes if we're fortunate, we learn and we get away from our dysfunctional and traumatic beginnings. But sometimes they stay within us if we're not careful, because if we ever had to rely on anything dysfunctional to cope and survive, a lot of times our instincts are want to keep going back to that snake hole. We keep wanting to go to what's familiar and instinctive. And so we reenact our trauma. We keep doing the dance, and we find in relationships other people to do the dance with. But when it comes to aggression, when it comes to substance abuse, when it comes to shutting down, self-abuse, suicidality, when it comes to the ways we try not to feel our feelings, and so there's a lot of things that people are doing. Now, I have Will prompt me a lot because there's a lot on my hippocampus right now. And so as I present from memory, I do have to have him prompt me. And sometimes I wrote these slides, but I forgot sometimes what I put on them. So, but what else is there?
Survivors must recognize the role in dysfunction.
Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah. So the thing is, the world does it to us first. But we have to recognize when we are doing it to ourselves. We have to recognize our role, because we continue to be the victim if we don't recognize that even though the injuries wasn't our fault, it wasn't our fault when we were injured as children. We have to tell our patients, our consumers, that it wasn't their fault that they were injured, but it's still going to be their outcome. You can get to the end of your life and say, well, you could have had a good life, but you had all those injuries in childhood. We want to still help them have as many good outcomes and joys and successes as possible. So they've got to see their role, because their injured behaviors are what keep them injured, preserving those and maintaining those injuries and finding some new ones too. And so, did I cover it? There's something else. There's something ICC, and that's one of the things too. We'll talk more about this in this presentation and in other presentations. When we can identify, challenge, and change our injured behaviors, when we can identify, wow, I was injured, and I recognize here that at this point in my life, on my timeline, I started to do these behaviors because I was really just trying not to feel my feelings. And I recognize now why I have some of these problems. Once we catch ourselves doing that thing that we do, once we start to do the thing that we do, we can recognize it and we can do something different. And it's awkward, it's weird, it's uncomfortable, it's unfamiliar, but over time we can repeat new thinking, new behaviors, and we can give ourselves new development in our brain. We don't have to be stuck with the injured brains that we have. We, can't erase the injury, but we can influence ongoing development based on what we do. And our awareness creates choice. We have the ability to put cookies in our own jar. When you're little, you only have the cookies that were put in that jar. You only have the concepts that were introduced to you. You only have the norms and familiarities that were given to you. But once you have consciousness to say, there's other cookies out there, there's other ingredients, there's whole other jars. I don't know. I've been thinking a lot about cookies here lately. Thinking about that, we can identify, challenge, and change. ICC. That's a little acronym that I like to use. But we've got to catch ourselves doing that thing that we do, whatever that thing is, because we have a lot of repetitive and pattern behaviors. We can recognize what we do. I'm going to talk to you some about emotional intelligence here in a minute, but my dogs actually are what helped me learn about emotional intelligence. I tell this story a few times, but dogs don't have very big brains. They're not highly emotionally intelligent. And so dogs, when they get excited, when they have a feeling, where do you see it most? Anyone want to tell us what part of a dog's body shows us their feelings? That could be our first trivia question. No, I don't know. They show it in their tail. That's an appendage that actually is an extension off of their lower spine, and it feeds into their brainstem. And so that actually connects directly to their feelings. Now, they don't decide to have a feeling and wag a tail. That is automatic. And so now, for instance, I've got a "Do Not Disturb" sign on my front door today, so people won't come in and bother us and make the dogs bark and everything. But when people do knock on the door, they get excited. They're excited to greet them or see who's coming, and their tails get to wagging. And if there's a soda on the table near the the door, it's going down. And I could try to teach my dogs to have different emotional behavioral responses to their excitement, but they're dogs. They have pretty small brains. Now, human beings, we have approximately 16 billion neurons in our cerebral cortex. We have the biggest brain that we're aware of in the universe. We have the ability to think about thinking. We have the ability to recognize our tendencies. We have the ability to recognize when we do that thing that we do, when we do that thing that we do, in response to what stimulus and triggers. Because life does throw us curveballs, but there are also times when it's that thing that we do again and again and again, that trigger, that repetitive pattern. We can't predict and anticipate everything, but we can start to plan for some of those things that come up again and again and again. So we're not helpless, though. And there's a lot of people that feel like they're just along for the ride with whatever their brain and their body and their instincts and influences and everything that cooks them up to be the person that they are, the who, the how, and everything they are. And we have an active choice. We're not along for the ride with what our injuries have done to us. So, but we have to see our role and not just wait for somebody else to fix us. And so I tell survivors, I said, I don't know the address to the local wishing well. Do you? No. Oh, there's no such thing. Of course not. So the things that we want, the things we need, we have to go get it. We're going to have to pursue our own recovery, because a lot of people become stuck in those injured patterns. They want to feel better, but they're not doing anything to help that. And so that's the injury. That's the cycle of pain and regret. So what's next, William?
In a time before suicide.
Okay.
Ancient and primitive.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, I know. Okay. Now, some fascinating stuff, maybe. I don't know. Human beings have become really complex. You can think what you want about evolution or whatever, but it's still happening. We're in the process right now. And as we become more indoors and more technologized, is that a word? Technologized or connected in that way, we will continue to change. In fact, they see more nearsightedness and farsightedness now than ever before, and aging eyes, because we're always looking at screens like you guys are looking at me today. But once upon a time, we were a little bit more like animals. And so we were primitive, we were instinctive, and we wanted to survive. We wouldn't think of ending our own life. You don't do that. You only get one. You live. Live as long as you can. You survive. You fight off the thing that's going to end your existence. You try hard to survive. You stave off the winter. You forage for food. You don't end your existence. Now, again, I mentioned we got big brains. Human beings have once upon a time, we developed the ability to consume mass quantities, kind of like, the coneheads, consume mass quantities. We were able to consume lots of calories quickly. You look at other animals and with other big brains around in nature, and elephants, you look at gorillas, you look at, whales eating constantly taking in calories to support their massive girth. And so, but something happened. Human beings developed the ability to cook. And when we developed the ability to cook, something happened. We transformed our food, and we were able to consume lots of calories quickly. And that freed us. We didn't have to sit around and eat all day. We didn't have to forage and graze like cows all day long. We were then it freed our mind up for more complex thought. We were pondering. You know, we see great philosophers and, throughout history, great thinkers, people who started to identify what was happening in the world based on mythological, interpretations. We were able to think once we didn't have to worry about survival every minute. And so, and of course, that reminds us that some people still have to think about survival every minute. That's why they're not able to develop those more complex capacities and work towards greater fulfillment because they're still surviving. But again, when we were able to consume lots of food quickly, we were able to develop our brains in different ways, and we were able to come up with amazing innovations. Human beings are ingenious. We have amazing capacities. Now we're also foolish and reckless and careless and destructive. So with all the great ideas that we've come up with, we've also come up with some bad ones. And once upon a time, there was the first human suicide. Once upon a time, we don't know exactly when that was. I don't believe it's a part of recorded history, but there's a first time for everything, right? Well, there was a first human suicide. And human beings, we learned by imitation. Before that, I didn't know you could do that. And so undoubtedly others tried it, and then it became a thing. And they had to even come up with a word for it and a definition. And so suicide didn't used to be a thing sometime back in history, but now it is. And once you know a thing exists, how easy is it to unknow that thing exists? It's not easy. You can't erase that data file, maybe without boring a hole in your head or something. I don't know. And so, but once upon a time, now again, you think about all the ingenious ideas and innovations that humanity has been able to come up with. Also, we got some really silly stuff out there. One of the YouTubers, seen how many paper clips they could clip to their face just so they could get, humanity's gone pretty far off the beam sometimes, so there's a lot of stupidity and nonsense and ridiculosity, I will say. I think that's my own word. High levels of ridiculousness. Now think about this, Lady Gaga is a popular artist, and, I have no problems with her. I think she stands for some really good things. I don't know if I would have rocked the meat suit, though. That was her thing. She kind of wanted to be outrageous and, fabulous and whatever at an award show. You guys remember this? She fashioned a meat suit, and she wore it, and she looked like a big old strip of meat. Now, most of us would that's silly. Now, there's billions of people in the world and millions of fans of Lady Gaga. So don't think for 1 second that there wasn't a few thousand people that made their own meat suits. You can look it up online. People are posing in their own self-fashioned meat suits. So as ridiculous as that is to most human beings, don't think that when one person hasn't had an idea, that idea doesn't spread, whether it's a good idea or a bad idea. And that's how suicide got started. That's, and so what I want to do right now, I have a playful nature about me in the way I describe things, but I'd like to just take a moment of silence for those who, for whom the pain was too great. And so we'll just take a moment. As we take a time to just kind of think about this really somber topic. It's a down topic. There's probably not a family or a person on this line today that hasn't been affected in some way by when the pain becomes too great or when someone succumbs to suicidality. And so, so I just want to honor that loss. And I think it's important for us to remind ourselves the life or death nature of the work that we've chosen to take on. And so we have to try really hard, and we have to do it for those of us who've had to be invited to one of our kids' funerals because we weren't able to help for whatever reason. You know that pain and you don't want to feel it again. And so, I urge you to remind yourself that it is life or death work. And going in at this work humdrum and giving an average effort is not ethical nor acceptable. Sometimes we have less in our tank, and that's human, but we got to try really hard. And so I want to think a little bit about this concept that humans have developed called suicide. What's next?
Some statistics.
Okay, so those, I'm not going to read the statistics to you. You can read those statistics for yourself, and also we'll be glad to email this presentation to you. And numbers, there's only so much you can be gleaned from numbers. But one of the things that jumped out to me, if this is that slide, is that it's such a high rating lethality among young people, ages 10 to 30 something.
10 to 34.
Yeah, 10. Second?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. The number 2 leading cause of death among 10 to 34-year-olds. Accidents and natural disasters or something else is number 1. But yeah, that's and one of the things too is it also jumped out at me that twice our national murder rate is our suicide rate. We're always worried, we watch the news, we lock our doors, we're afraid of people trying to hurt us, but we're twice as likely to hurt ourselves, statistically. And so, and so that says something. We're an injured society, and we've become more so. Suicide rates have been up over the past year, and there's different numbers. There's different numbers on that. But I'll let you, kind of read from that. What you will. But young people are killing themselves in record numbers, and that's it's hard to fathom. We're not wired to. We're not born to self-destruct. The world is doing that to us. And so, what's next, William?
Suicide, ultimate avoidance routes.
Okay, so what's the first bullet?
A learned to imitate behavior. Sometimes it's also.
Yeah. Okay. So we've all had to send patients, or most of us have had to send a patient inpatient, and don't you hate to do it for the first time? Because what we do, even though it might be absolutely necessary and required, what we're going to do is they're also going to be exposed to other injured people and other injured pathologies and other injured norms in a place where they're still going to need to socially feel some acceptance and fit in. And so, but suicide, again, once you know it's a thing, it's in movies, it's in books, it's in the news, it's a thing. You can't not know that it's a thing once you know it's a thing. And so it's occasionally impulsive. People just become overwhelmed in the moment, but usually it's planned, it's calculated. People often know sometime in advance that's their plan to end their own life. And so what else is on here, Will?
Extreme emotional responses.
Okay, yeah. So a lot of injured people are seeing, they have extremes with the way that they communicate. And so the person that screams, "I hate you," is really saying, "I'm really mad at you." The person that says, "I want to die," very often is saying, "I am overwhelmed and I don't know how to say it better. I need help. I need to regain control." And so it's usually not that people wish to be deceased. It's usually not that people want to be in a coffin and buried in the ground. They want pain to stop. And so it's I think it's important for us to recognize, that sometimes it may be a split decision, but usually it's a planned thing. And but it's that people are planning their end because they want pain to end. They want the pain to stop. What's next? Well,
Suicide and liberty.
okay. Well, suicide and liberty. So here I have some questions, and here we might stir some folks up a little bit. That's okay. We can, and I don't have any strong opinions about whether things should or shouldn't be. But let's ask some questions, and I'll love to hear your comments or questions or thoughts on it. As long as you don't want to be too terribly mean to me. But does a competent adult have the right to end their own life? And then, of course, it begs the question, is a person competent if they wish to end their own life? So, black and white is not the color of life. There's lots of gray. And so now think about this too, because a lot of times now we have our moral and ethical values and our standards of professional care and everything else. But what else affects what you believe about suicide, about people's rights regarding the end of their own existence on this earth? So is it spirituality? Is it religion? Is it citizenship? I know a lot of people that say, by God, you're not going to tell me to wear a seatbelt, and you're not going to tell me when to wear a mask, even if it'll save my life. But we will tell you also that you cannot end yours. And some of the same people that are hands off, don't tell me what to do, are ready to tell you you can't. And so I don't know if you should be able to or not. One of the things, I think that there's a lot of gray. If our life has not produced in us a desire to die, then it's very easy for us to project that, experience that reality upon to other people. And so now I'll also ask is there a difference between euthanasia and suicide? It's an intentional, ending of one's life. We allow for more humane treatment of dogs in this country when they're suffering terminally than we do for human beings in most states. We know you're going to die, and it's going to be a certain amount of time, and it's going to be excruciatingly painful, and we'll give you some pain meds for that. But you lay there and suffer and worry about it and think about it and look into the gaping maw of death and just suffer. That's the natural way of things. That's the natural order of things. So, I had a scare with my health. I thought I might have some throat cancer, and thankfully I did not. But I've known somebody that's suffering badly with that, and they're in agony. And would the world tell me, no, you lay there and you writhe in agony? As somebody that was looking into that possibility myself, I wondered, was that my fate? And so I think about debilitating mental illness. I think about the person who lost their whole family to an accident. Do we have the right to tell them, no, you stay here and experience the pain of losing your partner or your children? Do we have that right? I don't know. And so, I've known patients with schizophrenia who, if awake, had to be so sedate with medications that they could barely talk or function. Now, we're going to handcuff you to that life. We're going to make you live that life. Now, that's not our life. We'll see you on next visiting day. So there's a lot of questions. I have as many questions as I have answers regarding a lot of things, but I'll tell you this. If they're letting you know in any way that it's a possibility, they're giving you the opportunity to stop them. You know, watch out for the person that's not communicating. Watch out for the person that's doing subtle things that wouldn't be noticed. That's not trying to say, "Stop me! I'm going to do this." So, I hope I didn't, hurt anyone's feelings or anything there, because some people believe that you absolutely have to live until your body naturally expires, no matter what. And I think that that's kind of a hardline approach. I will respect that view, but I want to be careful about projecting that view onto somebody else's ride on planet Earth, because we don't know the suffering of others. But I do hope to inform people on on the temporary nature of emotions, because it can get better and healing is possible. So anyway, think I upset anybody, Will?
No.
Okay, good. That's good.
So transparency and trust.
Okay. Transparency and trust. I wonder if as many patients would take the pills they're prescribed if doctors really sat down and said, "Now look, you need to understand, this is what could happen." How many doctors are truly doing that? You think patients are remembering what the liability statement read in, positive, cheerful music on the commercial? You think that does it for your mentally ill community mental health center clientele? It's not informed consent. And so, but from my end, I want patients to understand what my rules are. I want, my professional standards, the laws and rules that govern my work, the decisions that I have to make, and I also want to let them know that, look, if you want to hurt yourself, I want you to not hurt yourself. I want to preserve your life until hopefully you don't feel that way anymore. Because is this about the temporary nature of emotions?
No, informed professional standards is
Oh.
simply validity.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. And one of the things that in being transparent, I don't want to play gotcha. I don't want to say, all right, well, you said the wrong thing. Now some things, the wheels are in motion. And so a lack of transparency provokes a lot of anxiety and suspicion from the patient. So I'm going to tell them ad nauseum what I got to do. This is the way it works. And so I'm going to do lethality checks. And I'm going to let them know it's not wrong to think about it, because how can you not know about it once you know about it? And so on a bad day, who hasn't said, I shouldn't even be here anymore? The thought has probably crossed a lot of people's minds. And if you say it to the wrong, very green clinician, you might be going to a traumatic place for a few days that you didn't need to go. And so a lot of people are afraid of making very important disclosures because they're afraid of an unnecessary IP treatment. Now, sometimes it is necessary, and I'm not discouraging it. I believe that most of our inpatient facilities are not particularly conducive to healing. I'm not going to call out any names. Some are better than others, but none are great. Not here. That I'm aware of. And so, but I want to, and that transparency really allows them to have the opportunity to know, if they thought about it, they're not necessarily going away, but I'm going to see how serious they are. And if they really do tell me about a plan, that means they're asking me for help. That means my level of transparency is giving them the opportunity to say, I'm laying this at your feet now, and I know what you got to do. And so I think it's really important for us to truly offer that informed consent. And so when we're structuring, that's what I'm going to teach about next month on May 21st on our website. But talking about confidentiality and what the rules I got to play by are. And helping them and establishing that therapeutic relationship, helping them feel truly safe with the information that they choose to share. I don't want to give people a recipe to fool my lethality check, but I want to let them know what I got to do. And so they're truly informed on the process they're engaging. So that's just good ethics. Keeping up with I think I hadn't said ethics in over 12 minutes. So. Okay, reducing stigma. And so I remember some of the stuff on this one. We even joked a little bit about this one, didn't we, Will? It says on there 26% of Americans diagnosable. And I said, well, where's that statistic come from, Will? And he said, I don't know. So that one's because Will said so. No, I'm just kidding. Johns Hopkins is who produced that data. And the CDC also has some data with a little bit varying numbers there. And that means nothing. Those are the people who are reporting their mental health issues. The people a lot of the people who have mental health issues are undiagnosed. So those numbers really don't mean a lot. And let me just say something else. What's the bullet two? Second bullet?
Everyone's diagnosed.
Oh yeah. Yeah, everybody's diagnosable with something. Words. You know, we're on the number 5, 5th edition of the Diagnostic Statistical Manual, the big book of disorders that tells us all the words we get to choose from to tell somebody what's wrong with them. And so now 5th edition, where there was 4, 3, 2, 1, and there's going to be 6, 7. So the words are going to keep changing. The words will keep changing along with our human understanding of human problems. Our understanding changes along with, then the words do too. But human problems are the same problems they've been. And so, and these are 3 for my note takers. I think it's on the slide too. What we need to be addressing, regardless of those words, are trauma and chronic stress, unmet emotional needs, and dysfunctional norms, detrimental familiarities. 90 or 95% of your patients are dealing with those things. Now, we can put different slices of words on it. And I tell people the words we use, we're governed by the medical model. The medical model says we got to say something's wrong with you in order to justify payment from a payer source. In order to get money, we've got to say something's wrong with you. And there's some legitimacy to that. We've got to have a legitimate problem to, reimburse treatment for that need. But I also let them know that's just a word I've got to use for to turn the money wheels. You're really just a person that's stressed out and come to struggle with your feelings. I said that to a kid once. I said, you're really not a mentally ill kid. I know, but this is a mental health facility. Yeah. And I'm a mental health professional, but most of the kids I see are not mentally ill. Most of them have just been really stressed out and hurt, and they've come to struggle with their feelings and their behaviors. And like this kind of calm went over him. He's like, oh. I said, but I've got this disorder and this disorder. I know, but I said, but that's just so we can get your money. You think they're going to do this stuff up here for free? Nothing happens for free in the world. So we've got to reduce the stigma and help people see that they're just normal human beings doing what normal human beings do when they're injured. I didn't feel like crap about myself for having a broken leg. I was hurt and I couldn't walk very good. And I was sad and mad sometimes, and I had, little emotional moments, but I didn't beat myself up for that because I was hurt. And we've got to help people overcome the stigma that's associated with mental illness. Again, you know what? There is a word in there for everybody. There is a word in there for a disorder for people who don't like to use public toilets. There really is. Now, go in some of them 7-Elevens, I don't know, maybe I don't want to get sued by 7-Eleven. Some gas station toilets, you're more sane for not using them. And if you've ever been depressed or sad enough that it made it hard to function for those moments, or if you've ever been so anxious or stressed out that it was hard to think or hard to get through what you had to do in those moments, guess what? In those moments, you, my friend, were diagnosably mentally ill, and we all are at one moment or another. There's a big stigma about going and getting help and having to be mentally ill and be treated for mental illness, but those are the brave ones because we're all diagnosable. I just really do believe that at some point or another. So, so reducing the stigma. Comments or questions?
We have 11 slides in 28 minutes. So.
Okay, that's pretty good. Really? What time is it?
Cool.
Wow. So we've got to end this at I think we ended at 4:45.
4:30.
Okay. Well, I believe that we end at 4:45.
but I'm long-winded. I can go till 4:30 or 4:45. So either way. And for those of you that are watching later on pre-recorded stuff, sorry, the time is probably going to be off by at least 30 minutes for whatever I'm saying. So, anyway,
Jeremy,
so
4:45 will be an hour and a half.
at 4:45, correct?
Correct.
Good deal. That's what I thought, brother.
All right.
Okay. So, so what's next?
The most at-risk populations,
Okay.
indigenous people.
Okay. So, yeah. Looking at just some of the numbers, indigenous people are among the highest rates of suicide. Veterans, we already know, are really at risk. You know, the men and women who go and serve our country and keep us safe. And we hope only go and fight when it's necessary, you know, because they go and put themselves in harm's way. So obviously we only want them to do that when it's necessary. I don't know if that's always the way it goes down, but I salute our men and women and the injuries that they're bringing home. You know, and so also construction workers. I found that to be a bit surprising. And so I would be interested right now for those of you who really are paying attention and tuned in today. What are your thoughts? Why is construction? Maybe maybe you've already read the cause or the reason, but I was kind of surprised by that. I expected it to be like law enforcement, which there is some rates that are notable there, and different things. You know, some notable rates among first responders and different things. And so, but one of the things I'm going to be talking at the Tribal Behavioral Health Conference here in a couple of weeks about healing our warriors. And one of the things that I think it's really significant, there's a statistic that I heard from the CDC, and it just knocked me over. Of all the suicides that we have in Oklahoma, well, first off, let's look at our population demographics. Native American and indigenous peoples make up approximately 6% of Oklahoma's population. This is not, I don't think, in the presentation, so don't be looking around there. It's not there. Like, yeah, we know, we have eyeballs. But 6% of Oklahomans are Native Americans, and that's males and females. And so less than 6% of Oklahomans are considered to be Native American males. So if men and women together are 6%, less than 6% is the men. And so Native American males make up approximately 24% of all suicides in Oklahoma. Can you wrap your head around that? Less than 6% of us is making up nearly a quarter of our suicides. And so I'm baffled and saddened, as we all should be, by that. I'm a native Cherokee. I have a low amount of Cherokee blood, but I am on the rolls, and I was born in an Indian hospital in Claremore, Oklahoma. And in studying some of the things, the majority of indigenous peoples on the North American continent were absolutely massacred. It's some estimates put 95% of a whole race of people, or collective sub-races of people, or whatever, different tribes. I'm not sure how you actually say that. We're all humans, but we almost wiped them out. We didn't, but the invaders of this continent did that. And so the Native Americans who were allowed to survive were forced to adopt white culture and wear white clothes and white tongue, beaten for speaking their native tongue and going to boarding houses. And in America was such a fledgling society as it was, and yet we had this brand new culture we were developing, and we were ready to inflict that upon anyone, and so, but one of the things that we see in thinking about suicide is, well, adaptation. If the majority of a people are massacred and destroyed in their culture, for those who remain, for those who have remained, part of the adaptation does seem to be self-destruction.
through substance abuse, through suicide, murder rates and homicide rates are astronomical. And I think I saw a statistic, Native American women are committing a lot of domestic violence against Native American men as well. It's not just men beating up on women. And isn't that the way though? You know, it seems like when we're working with kids, somebody will hurt that kid and then they'll be gone from the kid's life, and then that kid is left to be hurt with those who are around, left to be injured with those in their vicinity. And so so many Native peoples were injured and then left to be injured with one another. And so generational trauma is a real thing. And we can see that not just passing traumatic norms down from generation to generation, but also passing down gene expression. You know, I don't know, there was an interesting study. I'll just refer to it really quickly. I've talked about it before, but in a study of male mice, they were shocking the mice, and then they let them smell cherry blossoms. Shocked them, cherry. Shock them, cherry. So obviously the mice came to fear the smell of cherry without even being shocked. They come to associate pain with cherry. And so then these mice had pups, and these pups had never been shocked. And up to 3 generations of pups were frightened of cherry blossom smell when the rest of the mouse population was not. And so, indeed, a great many of us may be reacting to things that were impacts to our ancestors, and we don't know that. You know, sometimes we block out or we forget our trauma that was within our consciousness, but that's really living in the unremembered past. And I don't want to draw any immediate conclusions because this was a study of mice, but mice have very similar nervous systems. And so that's why we use them in a lot of studies, because there is a lot of comparability there. So did anyone have thoughts on why construction workers are offing themselves in such record numbers? William? Or did anyone have other questions or comments?
That's what conference you're speaking at, Stan, and they said construction workers can witness terrible accidents, chronic pain, financial instability.
What did you read that again? I'm sorry.
Construction workers can witness terrible accidents,
Yeah.
chronic pain, they have chronic pain and financial instability.
Absolutely.
Contract.
Sure. That's a really good, some really good points. You know, chronic pain, high risk work, contract jobs that, you know, are feast or famine. You know, those are some responses that we got regarding the construction. And thank you for that, because you've obviously known some, you know, my father worked in construction, and you're absolutely right, chronic pain. And also, you know, there's a lot of substance abuse prevalent in this industry, and maybe it is because of the high stress and because of the risk and because of the pain. And so thank you for that. But one of the things too, being Indigenous doesn't mean you do suicide. Being a construction worker or a veteran doesn't mean it's an automatic thing. A does not cause B. So we need to understand the difference between causal and correlation. But being a part of these groups and some of the stressors they've had to endure does increase some of those risk factors. And so, but also you said what health conference, a couple of them. And it's so neat too, because once upon a time, Mark might remember, once upon a time I would send in a little application and say, could I please present at your conference? And now people just call me and invite me to present. So I'm going to be talking at the Tribal Public Health Conference on April 20th. Is the date on that one. So apologies for those of you that are viewing this after that date, because you will be. And so the other one, I'll be talking at the Children's Behavioral Health Conference next month for the Department of Mental Health. And I am so excited. I'm so stoked to do that, because I've worked for the DMH for a number of years, and they didn't know about me until we started making some noise in other parts of the state. So I'm super, super proud for my DMH to be hearing about me and me to come home and present for them. So those are some of the things we got going on. But check us out. We've got one event per month at New View. And also, we're going to be doing something really cool down south with Mark and Odapka again over the summer, if it's safe to do so, and have a little getaway for everybody, and maybe do some live events again soon. So that is one thing we're hoping to get live again real soon.
Commented the Native American women have the highest rate of being missing or murdered.
Yep. That is absolutely right. I don't know if you guys are able to view the comments that are shared, but somebody just noted that Native American women are among that have some of the highest rates of being missing, abducted, and murdered, and that's absolutely true. And again, that's not changing because it's something that we're systems are not caring enough to do something about it. And so, but once again, it's the professional counselors, it's the social workers, it's the true leaders that are going to help implement the real change that's needed for our state. That's why you guys got to get paid more, because you understand that the work that you're doing may help that Native American woman get to a safe place where she's not abducted or murdered, and it understands, that there are these trends, because I don't believe that Native American males want to kill their women. That's not a point of pride for the tribe, but there are, again, people have been left to be injured with one another. And so thank you for the comments and the questions. So
next is emotional intelligence essential for human.
Okay, so we got to be smarter about how our brain works. This is an amazing thing we have up there. And so being more emotionally intelligent is giving people the keys to their own vehicle. There's an Eagles song I like, So oftentimes it happens that we live our lives in chains and we never even know we have the keys. And so awareness creates choice. And so we're going to understand that we have a limbic system. That's our emotional brain. We have a cerebral cortex. That's our smart brain. And we get some choice about how our brain works once we choose to, once we become aware, once we have some mindfulness about our own cognitive processes. We've got to understand why we have feelings. We've got to understand our injuries and the impacts that those things have had upon us. But we've got to understand the purpose of emotions. I have a discussion where I talk about, why we have feelings, and I put them into these different categories. And the purpose is, it's kind of like that little movie Inside Out, which is an okay movie. I'm always looking for examples and illustrations. The intro was okay. It was a good movie. But I like how it designated the different roles of emotions, because these emotional capacities do serve a purpose. Emotions are not bad or good. Some of them are very unpleasant, but those unpleasant emotions are the ones we need to pay the most attention to. Those are the ones that are most necessary and key to our survival. So we want to be smarter about our feelings. And we also want to slow a reaction down to a decision. People are constantly reacting to things. And so we want to slow down and think, how is it that I'm feeling right now? Because we use our smart brain to examine what the other parts of our brain are doing. We use our cerebral cortex to look at the limbic system and say, how do I feel right now? And that awareness gives us some choice, because then studies show if we know how we feel and why we feel that way, we're less likely to let our feelings out in ways we don't want them to come out, ways we would find regrettable, bad for us or others. And we can slow that reaction down to a decision. All right, here's how I feel, and here's what I want to decide to do, and understanding that feeling is trying to motivate and guide me. Feelings are there to help us motivate, guide, navigate, decision make. Feelings are not bad or wrong, but sometimes what we learn to do with them is. A human brain, I said it's like a cookie jar, and for the tech generation, I say it's like a brand new iPhone. you know, and a brand new iPhone's got no data used. It's got no apps on it yet. So it's got all this space. And little kids, they look around and their eyes and their ears absorb the world. And then data starts to go into their brain. And that's the data they have to access. And so, but the neat thing is, as adults with some means and resources, we get to create and choose some of our own data. You know, we put our own apps on the program now. And so, but we want to be smarter about our feelings. No feelings are bad or wrong, just what we choose to do with them. And what are some of are there any key points I missed on that?
Recognizing and managing pain, physical or emotional.
Yeah.
And how to use our brain. You've covered.
Yeah, well, part of emotional intelligence does recognize that pain, now we don't want to just feel it and feel it and feel it. We need to address it. A pain of physical or emotional nature is pointing to something, a problem, a need. And so emotional intelligence recognizes that we're not just here to suppress, we're not just here to distract, we're not just here to cope. We also may have a need, a true need. So let's continue.
It starts with recovery, mind,
Okay, so
injuries and injuries.
yeah, I got you. Well, you know, I think old school therapy, you know, it was like you had to, you know, there's catharsis, you get into tears, you know, you got to get them crying, you know, and telling their story, and then they feel like better or something, you know. I don't know. Crying's not always necessary. Sometimes it happens. And the reason I say that is because what I've seen more tears fall is when I tell people to forgive themselves for being injured. When we look at studies like the ACEs, we can see that people were, you know, we can look at some of these ACEs and see what kind of problems they were likely to develop in adulthood. That means it's a human phenomenon. It's not one person's weakness or flaw that they develop these tendencies or characteristics, these injured patterns and ways of being. Now, if one person got hurt in childhood, or if we all got hurt in childhood, but most of us were okay afterwards, you know, and we didn't develop any problems as a result of that injury in childhood, then, but this is a phenomenon. And so helping people forgive themselves for doing just exactly what normal, quote, normal, whatever that normal means, healthy human beings do when placed in abnormally stressful or dangerous or destructive, harmful situations. So especially if you were injured in childhood, you got to forgive yourself for that. You know, that wasn't your fault. You know, and so psychological education is so important. This is how, now, again, we know that the world beats us up sometimes, and then we start to beat ourselves up sometimes. And of course, life is hard and recovery is hard and all kinds of things are really hard in life. And when you feel like crap, that's how your efforts are. You do like crap. And so when we can get people to forgive themselves, then we see some of that self-esteem starting to grow in them. You know, if people that didn't get love in childhood, if we can help them understand that they were a baby, that they deserve love, and they can find ways to love themselves, you know, because we cannot just be doomed because we had ACEs. You know, I refuse. That's why the mission, you know, it upsets me so much that these ACEs are dictating our outcomes. When we're little, you know, we can't help ourselves so much. And that means that we have a shorter life because of the things that happened when we couldn't take care of ourselves. That's not okay. We got to change that. But we've got to help people forgive themselves for being injured and doing injured things, doing exactly what injured people do, and catch themselves at that point of time when they're continuing to do the injured behaviors, because that's where we can change. They've got to see the role of their injury. Did we say ICC again here? I think. Yeah. So they've got to understand. For instance, if I was a kid who was around people who had really mean, bad tempers, now you know that actually did happen, and then that was scary. I remember feeling scared when people would lose their temper or hit people around me when I was little. And so, and then at this point later on, I started wanting to throw things and hit things and break things and yell and be mean to people when I was an adolescent. And but I remember that I sure didn't like making people feel that way. I don't want to make people feel that way. And so we can identify, challenge, and change those impacts. We can see where they come from. We kind of have to tie the dot, connect the dots backwards sometimes, if we can, and see where those norms came from. But we can influence ongoing development. We can give ourselves new synaptic connections, new growth, new development in our brain. And so, but to do that, we really have to challenge ourselves. And so what else is on that slide? Don't I miss anything? Okay. So, but psychological education, and I often joke, but in all seriousness, they call it psychoed. Call it psychological. We're dealing with a stigmatized population. Psycho is not a great term. So some people are hurt by it, and some people are like, yeah, I'm psycho. So either way, not helpful. So go ahead and pronounce it. We're in an age where people are trying to like abbreviate everything. LOL. No, I don't. Real men don't LOL. By the way, that's my joke for the afternoon. But I really believe that. Okay. Yeah. So, in that transparency thing that I was talking to you guys about earlier, I want to tell them it's my duty, it's my ethics, it's my part to keep you safe. It's the law, but it's also the love that we have. It's our heart for this work. It's our recognition that problems may be terrible in that moment, but we have a wider view than them in their suffering in those moments. We see that it can get better. So helping people understand the temporary nature of emotions. Is that this one? What's this slide?
Emotions temporary, remember another bad.
Okay, so help it, I want to get people thinking, and when your patients come in and they say, man, I'm having a really good day. I don't really have that much to talk about. There's an opportunity there. There's a real opportunity there. So we want to plan. I don't want to bring anybody down off their good feelings, but I like to say sometimes, hey, remember how you was feeling last month? God, you was feeling really bad. Everything was just really doomy. So, remember how you're feeling right now? Do you know why I'm asking you that right now? And they're like, yeah. Because it was, and help people recognize the temporary nature of emotions. Somebody said, this too shall pass. And I hate that saying, but it's true. This too shall pass. It's like a dramatic teenage girl thing or something. I don't know. But I've heard that saying so many times. But it does pass. And so if we can help them plan for bad times when we're doing okay. Because I even say sometimes, let's write yourself a note, because you know what? You'll probably have a bad day again. Let's write yourself a note. What would you say to yourself? And I think that's a great activity, because they'll open that note up and they'll be reminded that the good days are around the corner again. And so, but we want to hold on to them. We want to keep them safe, because our goal is keep you safe till you don't feel that way no more. Did I cover everything on that slide? Well, are you sure? I feel like I'm missing something.
Looking beyond stability.
Okay. Looking, beyond stability, I started out in inpatient care. Where a child successfully ended their life. And a staff person also lost their life resulting from an injury they suffered there. Trauma-informed care is really life or death stuff. So, I get real irritated when I see people slap a 30-minute video in and call a facility trauma-informed. It's not ethical. It's not understanding the problem, the immense problems that we're here to face. And so, what's this one again?
Looking beyond stability.
Yeah, so looking beyond stability. A lot of times, and I moved to outpatient, and You know, my early years in outpatient treatment, I bless the hearts of the people who allowed me to learn in their service, because I was really focused on making sure people were not suicidal and homicidal coming from my foundations in inpatient care. And they're like, yeah, we know we're in outpatient care now. So, you know, we're not suicidal. So, but a lot of people, once we did stabilize, they're saying, now what? Now what? And so that leads us to our next slide, and that's the P's, right? So we have another training. I'm not trying to just be a commercial, but this is the last chapter of my book. It's almost done. I've only been writing this thing for 11 years. It's hard to write a book when you're working all the time. And so, but the name of my book is called ACEs, Injuries and Healing. And because I've gotten to learn from some really cool people, and being a part of that grant that Mark mentioned, and I've come up with a few things on my own. And the 9th chapter of my book is called The 4 P's: potential, productivity, purpose, and pride. You know, motivation, inspiration, and science for healing. And so I did that workshop recently, and I'm just really proud of it. I got a little emotional, but I'm really proud of what we did there, because all human beings have potential. And if you don't do something with your potential, you're going to be unhappy. You're going to be unfulfilled. You're going to be struggling. You're going to be searching. And so you guys remember Maslow, hierarchy of needs. All people also have a need to be productive. We have a need to show something for our time and our energy and our efforts. We need to do something with ourselves. We need to be able to look at our day or our week or our year or our life and say, I did that. I was here. I carried that mail. I built that house. I counseled that child. You know? And so train of thought, Will, where we're at? Okay, yeah. So no. Okay. The brain just kind of derails just temporarily, you know, like your computer, just a quick glitch. But productivity, though, when we don't have productivity, we have what? Idle time. We have unproductive time. We have people seeing how many paper, you know, clothespins they can fasten to their face so they can get the most viewers. You know, we got a lot of BS in our world. And so, so to do something, when we don't have productivity, we have idle time, and that gives us some time to think, sometimes too much. Sometimes we think about the problems that exist in our life. We come up with new ones. Sometimes too, we overthink, we dwell. And so, but we need that. That is a need. And so also, pride, you know, human beings now, I don't think we're supposed to be conceited and say we're awesome and we're the greatest and be narcissistic and put ourselves above all others. That probably happens too much in the world too, but we should like ourselves. We should commend ourselves and appreciate ourselves for our good deeds and good efforts. And in this work, you should be patting yourself on the back, because a lot of your injured populations, they don't know how to really appreciate you for the work that you do. Appreciate yourself. You know, be proud of yourself. I mean, you chose this work because you chose to help make a difference in the world. And, you know, because of the fat salaries and the luxury cars and you know, and the glamorous lifestyles this work affords you, right? Of course. No, you do it because you care. You know, you do it because this is your something. And so, and that leads me to purpose. And so every single human being gets to decide why they're here. And a lot of people don't ever decide. A lot of people are just here. And, you know, if I'm in the middle of the lake, you know, in a boat, I hope I have a motor on my boat or a sail or an oar or something, because I want to have some direction. I want to have a purpose in being there. I don't want to just drift in life wherever the currents take me, you know. And so, I don't recall deciding to be born, but I decided why I'm here. Now that I know that I'm here, and I'm here, you know, And so the 4 Ps, came about because somebody was proud of me for continuing to work, even though I'm blind or mostly blind. I said, don't be proud of me. I like to pay my mortgage, and I have things that I can do. And everybody has things they can do. We all have obstacles. Some allow those obstacles to become excuses. And so I'm here to tell you, these are about meeting more complex emotional needs, but these are also about how to get well. I've been injured, and so have you, I bet you. And pursuing my purpose, pursuing my potential, and trying to stay productive, it's got me through some really dark times. And it's made me, whole again. And so I want you to help people remember that pursuing their purpose, pursuing their potential is part of what's going to get them through to their recovery. People with a sense of purpose have a longer life, and they have an improved stress response. I'm reminded of Stephen Hawking. He said they told him he wasn't going to live very long. He had ALS, great astrophysicist. And he said, I ain't got time for that. I got stuff to do. He lived to be 76 years old. He had great money and resources, but he also had purpose. He had things he was here to do. And we decide what our purpose is, and we decide whether we're half-assed about it or if we're all about it. And my mission, my purpose is to be the dad that my daughter needs, and the leader that my organization needs, and the social worker that my state needs. My state needs me. My state needs you. And so I'm not trying to just, appeal to your sentiment here, but, when you decide what you're about, be about it. And don't be out about it a little bit. Pursue your purpose vigorously, and that will get you through some of the darkest times. And so I want to get people lit up about their 4 Ps, and I got a whole presentation about that, so I'll spare you about the 4 Ps. And I appreciate you guys bearing with me today too, because, not everyone has to have somebody off to the side tell them what their slides are. I've had to commit a lot to memory. But I appreciate you guys for bearing with me when I go on my rants and my soapbox. But I like to joke, what I lack in intelligence, I make up for with enthusiasm and above average memory. So that's the 4 Ps. And I want to train this concept everywhere, because clinicians who are really embracing their potential as clinicians are the most effective ones. The ones that are really trying hard and being about that role, are the ones that are the truly effective ones. I want to appeal to direct care staff, because a lot of direct care staff in facilities, they feel like they're professional babysitters, and they have the ability to really make or break the treatment process. And we need to treat those people and pay those people and train those people like the mental health professionals that they are, but to use their potential to make sure that they're not just sitting back watching the TV, that they're being productive with their residents, that they're making sure that it isn't just a job, that there's purpose in it. And I want to, like I said, I want to do a lot more with the 4 Ps. So thank you for letting me share, because it's my heart. This mission, this book, and this organization, they're my second child. I have a little baby girl, and she's number 1, but this is number 2.
So we got 8 minutes and 7 slides.
Oh, okay. So, well, I was worried that I was going to run out of, that I wasn't going to have enough slides to tell you guys that. So again, feel free to email us. It's not just about thinking more positively, though, and don't use your quick one-liners and cliches, because they're not helpful with injured people with whom is injuries you may not grasp fully. We don't walk in other people's shoes to tell people that which doesn't kill you will only make you stronger. God will never give you more than you can handle. That's not helpful, and it's not true. And to suggest that things only happen for a reason suggests that maybe there's a good reason. You know, when somebody's house burns down and kills their family, that happened for a reason. Yeah, I'll fire it, but not a good reason. It wasn't to challenge your faith or to see how strong you could overcome. Things just happen sometimes. And I think sometimes we attempt to project our values onto others. But I'm not going to tell somebody to just think more positively, but I am going to inform them on how to use their brain, on why they can, or why they should, and how they can think more positively. Because evidence shows when you use optimistic or positive thought thinking, or if you learn to challenge thoughts that don't benefit you, you're actually choosing the access to your prefrontal cerebral cortex, your smart brain. When you think pessimistically or negatively, you're thinking from your limbic system. That's in that part of your emotional brain. And we need our limbic system. It's there for a reason, but it's not there good for problem solving. It's not its strength. It's not its capacity. It just wants and feels. So we can challenge thoughts that don't benefit us, and we can choose which part of our brain we're accessing. We're not just stuck reacting and along for the ride. So I'm going to skip this one. I got lots more stuff about that I can tell you. But that's legitimate. That's a neurological fact. That's not just Jeremy said so. We can scan somebody's brain and talk with them while we're scanning their brain and see what is happening and which thoughts lead to better cognitive process. So that's a legitimate thing. Oops. Next.
So self-care is healing.
Okay. This is another one of the ways that we put the keys in their hands. Doctors and good doctors will make sure people are eating right and getting enough sleep and exercising. Because if you're not, you're supposed to feel bad. You're supposed to feel bad. You're supposed to be down. You're supposed to be lethargic and maybe depressed or agitated and anxious if you don't use your body the way it's supposed to be used. So again, I got lots of stuff about this. To take care of yourself, but also recognize this as clinicians. If you are taking care of yourself is about the way you feel and your health, but it's also about your functionality. If you're not as good at your job or as attentive or focused at your job or compassionate without self-care, then we may be breaching some ethics if we choose to neglect our self-care. I mean, things get busy, but you've got to attend to that need eventually. And so, but also, there's a lot of people, if we can just get them doing healthy food, just some basic healthy food, not like all nutrition guru stuff. I'm talking just basics. Getting enough sleep and getting exercise, because people who are not exercising are really, really damaging themselves. And so when we can get them motivated about that, that's why I say clinicians have the ability to really affect change. If you get them motivated about those change, some of your patients will come back and say, you know what? I did it and I feel better. And I did that. When we can get them to take action that affects their own change, their own progress, their own benefit, it's empowering to them. And it's natural. And it doesn't necessarily grease the wheels of the economy, but it's the ethical thing. And of course, I always tell, let's meet basic needs first and then consider, those other options. So, but self-care, without it, you got to, you're supposed to feel bad. What's next?
Next is injuries and extra energy.
Okay, well, I just want to say one thing about this. Human beings have at least two levels or layers of energy, and traumatized or high stress, chronic stress populations have a third layer of energy. There's extra cortisol and adrenaline and much more active parasympathetic nervous system. So I will tell you, exercise is important for everyone. Exercise is extra important for the survivor of trauma. Extra important. I tell people, if you got PTSD, you ain't going to recover unless you exercise. You've got to manage that overexerted, that overactive nervous system. You can help regulate and bring your emotional levels back within manageable and comfortable levels. You can boost your endorphins and your serotonin and your dopamine, the things that make you feel good and help you relax. And you can reduce the cortisol and adrenaline, the things that makes us feel agitated and overwhelmed and overstimulated. So we have to get people pumped up, because there's a lot of people that want to feel better but don't want to lift a finger, and that ain't going to work. So keep going.
Change is hard.
Yeah, people expect for quitting smoking or quitting drinking or quitting drugs or changing the way they interact and communicate and cope and deal with life is going to be easy. They want the change, and then it hurts or feels bad or cravings or stress. We've got to remember and prepare for this task. We're about to climb a mountain. We're about to climb a mountain, and it's going to be a tough journey. Get ready to grit your teeth. Get ready to bear it. Get ready to wear those coping skills. And that's one of the things that I talk about. We're running out of time here, but we've got to practice and practice and practice those coping skills and rehearse them like tornado drills and fire drills and CPR and first aid, because we've got to practice for the stress moments and the painful moments in a low stress and calm and stable time, because it's hard to figure out what to do when you're overwhelmed. It's hard to make good decisions when your emotional, chemical, and electrical responses in your brain are high. So we've got to do things to help regain that balance. And exercise is one of the best ways to do that. And I literally have had people say, I'm telling my doctor that I don't need these medications as much now. That's between you and your doctor. It's not ethical for me to advise you on that. So next.
Yeah, 1.5 minutes.
Okay, I'm going to finish. Okay, so we got just a couple slides left. Then again, I'm advocating in many ways for clinicians to be paid better and for things to be more equitable, because you are the ones that show them the way. And I really want to empower this role. But also, I want you to remember, we've got to be strong in our therapy. We've got to be active. We've got to help them recognize when they're making progress and not just sit back and just wait till they quit showing up for therapy. We've got to be the leaders that we can be in this field, because it's life or death. And the next slide is about empowering the survivor, because they are the one. They've got to see their role. They've got to see their role, because, the world did it to us first, but we do it to ourselves now. And that last slide, again, I'll email you this slide and I'll be glad to talk with you just as long as you want to hear me ramble. But we want to make coping real, because I feel like in therapy, a lot of times we are talking about, you use your coping skills, you got coping skills. Okay, good. They're coping skills. We've said the word coping skills, so we covered it, right? No. We've got to practice. We've got to rehearse. We've got to drill. We've got to sell this concept. We've got to use them ourselves and make sure that we believe in it ourselves, because, we have to be consistent. And, if we want them to buy this product, it's something we have to believe in too. But we have to make coping real, because there's so many survivors that can recite to you 101 coping skills that they never use. And so it's more than an appropriate response in group or therapy. It's the thing that you do to reduce your emotional chemical levels, to feel better. That's a good reason, but also to improve your functionality. So I'm at my time, and Mark, he's always going to get the full duration with me, because I'm long-winded, and I appreciate you guys bearing with me today, and I'm really looking forward to checking this out with you guys, because I'll be viewing it with my audience, and we'll be chatting about it, and that'll be interesting. So, but check us out, newviewhealingsolutions.org. And again, I just want to close by saying, we have many obstacles. We're not out of the forest yet, but we must not let our obstacles become our excuses.